Life teaches you that not everything can be planned, and sometimes moments catch you completely off guard. Those moments can change everything. That night was one of those moments. Eddie had left for a 3-day training program abroad. I was used to being alone in the house, but something about this night felt different. I was sitting in the living room by myself, sipping wine to the soft hum of music. The dim light from the candles flickered around me, keeping me company in the stillness. I had on a thin nightgown, something comfortable. I wanted to feel relaxed, to soak in the quiet and find some semblance of warmth in my solitude. Since Charlie passed 8 years ago, evenings like these had become my escape, my way of confronting the loneliness that had settled into my life. But that night, just when I thought I'd be alone with my thoughts, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I found Philippe standing there. For a moment, I froze, my eyes locking on him, trying to process why he was here. He stood in front of me, holding Eddie's files and computer bag. His dark jacket clung perfectly to his broad shoulders, and his slightly tousled hair gave him that effortless charm he always seemed to carry. Philippe had been Eddie's close friend for years, but having him show up at my door like this, it caught me completely off guard. "Philippe, what are you doing here at this hour?" I asked. Unable to hide the surprise in my voice, he gave me a polite smile. "Hi, Amy. Eddie and I have been working on a project together." I finished up my part and didn't want to hold on to this any longer, so I thought I'd drop it off. For a moment, I hesitated. "Oh, right. Of course. Well, come in, please." "It's late, and I wouldn't want you standing out there," I said, stepping aside to let him in. As I closed the door behind him, I suddenly became aware of how I must have looked, standing there in the soft candlelight, wearing a nightgown. I tried to brush off the thought, but I caught the way Felipe's eyes lingered on me for just a second before he looked away. When we stepped into the living room, Felipe took in the scene, the candles, the wine, and smiled slightly. "Looks like I'm interrupting. A cozy evening, huh?" he said with a hint of humor. "Not at all," I replied quickly, setting my wine glass on the table. "It was just a quiet night. Nights like these helped me ever since Charlie passed. But honestly, I'm glad you came by. I haven't really had the chance to get to know you properly." Philippe nodded, his smile softening. "Yeah, we haven't spent much time together, have we? Even though I've been around Eddie for years. Honestly, I've always wanted to say how much I admire you, what you've done for Eddie, the way you've been there for him. It's incredible." I motioned for him to sit, and as he settled onto the couch, I went to grab another wine glass from the kitchen. When I handed it to him and poured him some wine, his calm and steady demeanor filled the room. It was something about Philippe, his quiet confidence, the way he carried himself. It made it hard not to feel his presence. Between sips of wine and late conversation, the atmosphere started to shift. There was something tangible in the air, something unspoken. Felipe's gaze lingered on me just a little too long, and I could feel my cheeks flush under his attention. It was like he wanted to say something, but the words were stuck somewhere between us. And I was feeling things I hadn't felt in a long time. His attention, the warmth in his eyes. It stirred something deep within me. It was a reminder of how lonely I'd been, how much I'd missed this kind of connection. "Amy," he said finally, his voice soft yet unwavering. "Seeing you like this alone, I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me. You're such a strong, remarkable woman, but at the same time I can feel your loneliness. It doesn't seem fair." His words hit me like a wave, and I wasn't sure how to respond. So I just stared at him, my breath caught in my chest as the room seemed to shrink around us. That moment caught me completely off guard. I didn't know what to say, but the sincerity in Felipe's eyes held me frozen in place. All I could do was smile, though my heart was racing like crazy. Philippe, I understand what you're trying to say. I finally managed, my voice soft but steady. But this is my choice. Loneliness sometimes feels like a form of protection. Philippe tilted his head slightly, his eyes filled with deep thought. Maybe loneliness isn't always the best protection, he said quietly. The air between us was charged with something I couldn't quite put into words. There was a warmth, a pull in Felipe's gaze, and I knew I wasn't imagining it. But should it stay at that? The intensity of the moment both scared and excited me. The story was far from over, and before it spiraled into something wild, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications for more. At the end of the story, your support through comments and likes will mean the world to me. That night I couldn't shake the warmth in Felipe's eyes from my mind. Talking to someone so genuine, so real, it left an impact I couldn't quite explain. But his words about loneliness stuck with me the most. How could someone like him, a strong, successful man, possibly feel alone? At one point, I couldn't resist. I leaned forward slightly and asked him, Philippe, why are you alone? I mean, you're 37 years old. Tall, charismatic, successful in your career. You're smart, mature. What woman could possibly say no to you? As the words left my mouth, I found myself locking eyes with him, waiting for his reaction. Felipe's expression grew serious for a moment, though the faintest smile tugged at the corner of his lips. He tilted his head slightly, pausing as if choosing his words carefully. Amy, sometimes loneliness feels like a choice. But really, it's just not finding the right person, he said. His voice is soft and thoughtful as always. Maybe a man like me has been too picky, or maybe the right person has always been close, but it's hard to see. His words both startled and shook me. I understood what he was implying, but I was too scared to admit it to myself. I felt the faintest blush creep across my face, but I managed a small smile. I don't know, Philippe. I think any woman who knows you would be crazy to let you go. A man like you shouldn't be alone. Philippe looked deeply into my eyes for what felt like an eternity. And you, Amy? He asked suddenly. Why are you alone? I have to ask. You've been on your own for years. How easy has it been to choose that? I hesitated, his question catching me completely off guard. I'm 60 years old, and I've seen loneliness as a kind of safe harbor, I said, my voice faltering slightly. After Charlie, I just couldn't imagine getting that close to someone again. But sometimes my words trailed off as my eyes unintentionally met his. There was warmth in his gaze, a pull that I couldn't ignore. At that moment, the tension in the air felt almost tangible. That's how I ended the night, with Philippe and a million unanswered questions swirling in my mind. As I lay in bed, the weight of what had happened between us pressed down on me. There was guilt, yes, but also an undeniable excitement. These were feelings I hadn't allowed myself to experience in years. I have to admit, things completely changed after that conversation with Philippe. Days passed, but my mind kept replaying that night. His words, his gaze, they lingered, almost like they had etched themselves into my soul. And no matter how hard I tried to push those feelings down, every time I had the chance to talk to him, they only grew stronger. Had the chance to talk to him, they only grew stronger. During the days Eddie was busy with his work, I continued talking to Philippe. Sometimes we grabbed coffee outside, other times we sat in his car and had long conversations. We spent hours talking on the phone. It felt so natural, so effortless, as if building a connection with him required no effort at all. But with every meeting, there was a feeling deep inside me that grew stronger. This wasn't just friendship. It was so much more than that. Every time I heard Felipe's voice, every time I saw that familiar smile on his face, my heart raced. I had to admit that these feelings weren't just innocent friendship anymore. And the hardest part of it all, keeping it a secret from Eddie, building such a connection with my son's best friend. Was it wrong, or was it just life giving me a second chance? Our last meeting was still vivid in my mind. We were sitting side by side in his car, sipping coffee and talking. That day, we grew closer than ever before. So close that Felipe's gaze lingered on my lips. My breath caught, and my heart pounded like crazy. In that moment, we were so close that the space between us had almost disappeared. But we both pulled back. The magic of that moment hung in the air for a while before we went our separate ways. After that night, I didn't hear from Felipe again. When his message finally came, it was deeper than I expected. It was just an address and a few words, but the meaning behind them was profound. Amy, meet me at this address tonight at 8. I'll be waiting for you. There's a place I want to show you, something I want to share only with you. When I read those words, it felt like a storm was brewing inside me. My hands trembled and my heart raced so fast it felt there to breathe. Every word Felipe wrote carried a weight, a sense of certainty. This was a turning point in our lives. The spark I felt inside was both terrifying and exhilarating. I knew exactly what he meant. This wasn't going to be an ordinary meeting. Should I go? I asked myself, but deep down, I already knew the answer. Preparing for that evening felt like I was transforming into someone else. I wore a sleek, form-fitting black dress. This dress, it was bold. It had an off-the-shoulder design and stopped just above my knees. A graceful yet daring look. As I stood in front of the mirror, I realized it had been a long time since I felt this attractive. I let my hair fall in loose waves over my shoulders and applied light makeup. My lips wore a bold red lipstick. I was certain Felipe's eyes wouldn't leave me all night. I'm doing this for him, I whispered to myself, trying to calm the excitement bubbling inside me. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just for him. It was for me too. I wanted to feel desirable, passionate, and special again. When I arrived at the address, Felipe was waiting for me in his car. The moment our eyes met, something stirred inside me. He was sitting there, his sleeves slightly rolled up, one hand resting casually on the steering wheel. His eyes carried that familiar warmth and determination. He stepped out of the car and walked over, opening the door for me. "Come on, Amy," he said in a low voice, extending his hand toward me. "There's something special I want to share with you tonight." As I held his hand, I realized my fingers were trembling. But Felipe's reassuring touch somehow calmed me. I got into the car and we drove off in silence. In the darkness of the night, it was just the two of us. Half an hour later, Felipe stopped the car. "We're here," he said with a faint spark of excitement in his eyes. In front of me was a breathtaking view. Nestled between the mountains was a small house, its lights glowing warmly. The chill of the night air brushed against my face as Felipe gently guided me toward the house. When he opened the door, I was stunned by what I saw. The house. It was a masterpiece. Every detail was exquisite. High ceilings, moonlight streaming through large windows, warm wooden accents, and a glowing fireplace. It felt like it had been designed just for me. The walls were adorned with art and natural tones. A glass coffee table stood elegantly in the center, surrounded by sophisticated furniture. A chic dining table sat perfectly in the middle of the room. Every element was so graceful, so intentional. "Did you design this?" I asked, my eyes filling with emotion. Felipe smiled. "Yes, but it wasn't until now that I've had someone as special as you to show it to," he said. In that moment, I was at a loss for words. Everywhere I looked felt perfectly in tune with my taste. I forgot the inner turmoil I had carried for so long and let myself get swept up in the magic of the moment. Felipe gestured toward the couch in the living room, inviting me to sit. The fireplace was crackling and the atmosphere felt like something out of a fairy tale. He returned with 2 glasses and a bottle of red wine. As he poured the wine, he leaned slightly toward me. "Amy, I asked you to come here because I know I can't keep holding back what I feel," he said, his voice deep and resolute, my eyes locked onto his. "Philippe," I whispered, but he stopped me. "No, let me say this. This house, this place, this night, it's all because I wanted to share it with you. You have captivated me more than anything else." My heart was pounding so hard I could hardly breathe. Philippe's words tore down every wall I had built inside me. "You know, Amy," he continued, taking a sip of wine, "seeing you alone, feeling your solitude, it pulled me closer to you every single day. And now I know I can't keep running from it." In that moment, the tension between us reached its peak. Philippe's eyes revealed everything. There was no hiding anymore. As he leaned closer to my lips, I forgot to breathe. The moment had finally come. Our lips were about to meet when I pulled back slightly. "Philippe, before we do this, we need to be sure," I said, my voice trembling. But Philippe was unwavering. "I'm sure, Amy. I'm absolutely sure now." I didn't know how this night would end, but I knew one thing for certain. This night was about to become one of the most special moments of my life. When Philippe's lips finally met mine, everything changed in an instant. It was like a firework igniting deep inside me, a passion I hadn't felt in years bursting to life. His kiss was deep and intense, and in that moment, I wanted nothing more than to be in his arms. My hands wrapped around his neck as he pulled me closer, his grip on my waist firm and full of desire. It was a moment so powerful, so full of passion that nothing else mattered. "Amy," he whispered, his lips trailing down my neck, "you're so beautiful. How did I not realize how incredibly captivating you are?" His voice was deep, filled with passion and tenderness. His words only intensified the emotions already overwhelming me. I leaned into his ear, my breath shaky, my heart racing. "Philippe, you're so handsome. And thank you. Thank you for making me feel this way." My words trembled with raw honesty. I had completely surrendered to the excitement and fire of the moment. The wine glass tipped over, and the crimson liquid spilled across the table. But we didn't care. In that moment, the world had stopped. It was just us. The wine was nothing compared to the passion flowing between us. As Felipe's hand slid my dress off my shoulders, I felt the heat of his touch against my skin. My dress fell slowly to the floor, leaving me completely vulnerable in front of him. I reached for his shirt, my fingers trembling as I unbuttoned it one by one. As I slid it off and tossed it to the floor, I couldn't help but marvel at his broad shoulders and toned chest. "You're incredible," I whispered, my eyes locked on his. His smile, warm and captivating, completely disarmed me. By the time we found ourselves in the bedroom, nothing could stop us. When my bare body lay back on the bed, Philippe leaned over me. He watched me carefully, his eyes filled with a mix of passion and admiration. His fingers brushed gently along my cheek, and then his lips found mine again. His kisses were intense with passion, but also unbelievably tender. As Philippe leaned down closer to me, I wrapped my arms around his neck, pulling him toward me. Every touch, every movement pulled me deeper into him. "Amy," he murmured, his voice almost a whisper. "Being with you. I can't put it into words, but I know I'll remember this moment forever." Everything happened so quickly in that moment. I could feel Felipe's warmth radiating through my entire body. I felt something immense inside me. I let out a sound that was louder than I expected. Gripping the sheets tightly with my hands, Felipe had stopped giving compliments and was completely focused on his movements. We were both out of breath. I couldn't even count how many times I had trembled and tensed. It had been so long since I felt anything this intense, this overwhelming. I couldn't recall how many times I dug my nails into Felipe's back. Knowing we were in the mountain cabin far from anyone's ears, I started to make more noise and I didn't hold back. I told Felipe, I want to feel all of the warmth I'm experiencing inside of me completely. With his flushed face and breathless state, he nodded, and finally he let himself go. What I had just experienced left me so exhausted and spent that I could barely move. But everything was perfect. Philippe lay down next to me, gently wrapping his arm around my shoulder. As we both tried to catch our breath, we stared at the ceiling. The silence between us spoke volumes about everything we were feeling. He took a deep breath and turned to face me. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice soft but laced with concern. "What will we tell Eddie? Is this going to be our secret forever?" I turned my gaze to him, and the expression on his face was a mix of emotions, fear, and a glimmer of hope. As I slowly ran my fingers across his face, I smiled faintly. "Philippe," I said with a quiet determination in my voice. "Tonight, just for tonight, I don't want to think about what's next. I want to be here with you." In that moment, I reached for my phone and typed a message to Eddie. "I'm staying at a friend's place tonight. Don't worry about me." As I hit send, a wave of calm and excitement washed over me. That night, we lost ourselves in the reality of everything we had shared. But the next morning held uncertainties, questions waiting to be answered. I knew this story wasn't over. It couldn't be. Yet for now, we left all the questions of the future in silence. Stay tuned, because this story doesn't end here. It's only the beginning. If you've made it this far, I know this story has touched you deeply. There's so much more to share, and you won't want to miss any of it. Don't forget to hit the follow button, turn on notifications, and leave a comment about this story.